It's all tied up at the Amazon European Masters as Corp take Game 2 over the Unicorns for their first time in the quarters. We won't see a 3-0. How good is that?
We predicted that.
You predicted that.
No,
It's nothing to do with me.
Dagda did it as well, but Corp is awakened finally after the first game. There's a huge difference. We had a first game, almost 50 minutes of game, but this one went way cleaner for Karmine Corp.
I don't want to talk too much about the draft, but the thing I find most notable is the fact that they first picked the Volibear, which I thought was pretty odd in some way, because they banned the Ahri themselves, which we said, like, hey, if you're blue side, you gotta pick the Ahri. But they picked the Volibear, and it works out for them.
Yeah, and I think it was kind of interesting to see, because I think the right call was made by Karmine Corp to kind of go, hey, look, it really doesn't feel like Ruby's very comfortable on this Ryze, but he's actually able to roam and like counteract any of these early plays the Volibear tries to make. And we saw the results, right? Ibo got punished hard in that top lane despite the good matchup. And a lot of that, we were kind of going, and even Dan talked, or Ox talked about in the cast, was we want to see cross maps. We never got that from Ruby, and it meant that Karmine Corp came into a mid game where they could actually fight against Unicorns.
And I think it's very, very, good that you talk about the mid game, because if we look at the early games, not only from Game 2 but also from Game 1, I mean, Unicorns Love had a fair chance.
Yeah, had a fair chance, but they tend to overextend their aggression after a few good plays. It happened in the first game, and it happened in this one as well. You were mentioning that Ivo got really punished in this matchup with the Rumble, and in this moment, in this game, Corp really got advantage out of that, and I missed that in the first game, I have to say.
Yeah, I think looking at the first game, like you could kind of see where a lot of these kind of cross maps were happening, where we'd actually have like Karmine Corp kind of falling behind with Ruby being able to protect his bot side, and then kind of come into a point where they were going to be relatively comfortable. It felt like we didn't get that this game, because SAKEN on the Azir was able to get good pressure, then roaming up towards the top side to try and help out, and it just felt like consistently, even though we saw this first initial play go well for Unicorns of Love, that afterwards that's where it started to kind of fall apart, where Ruby couldn't keep control over the mid lane. SAKEN was the first move in top, and we never really saw Ruby trying to use the realm warp, working with Lurox to move bot, to actually set up anything as a counterweight to get a bigger advantage for Unicorns of Love.
And I think it kind of crumbles down when you can't really make that early game happen, Noah, because you have to pull the trigger yourself.
Yeah, you have to pull a trigger if you're talking about Unicorns of Love, but in this particular game, I think individual prowess was mainly the difference. You got Ivo Dove so many times. SAKEN popped off once again, and this time it got him the victory in the Azir. And they were playing their comfort zone. I mean, you had the Volibear. You were talking about the Volibear. It's individually a huge jungler. He can do everything in the early game. There are not many junglers that can match the Volibear, and you have a very, very, very powerful couple in the jungle mid, and Corp got advantage out of that.
But then you mentioned something about that Azir, and I picked something up from you, Dag, that you weren't too keen on the Azir from SAKEN.
Yeah, I'm only so on the Azir. I honestly think that it's just missing what really makes Karmine Corp a difference maker, which is having that roam from the mid lane. Like, we've seen him on Ahri, we've seen him on the LeBlancs, we've seen him on the Ryzes throughout the European Masters, but now that he's going for the Azir, we're not really getting to see him having these same roamings. And even though he did get them off in this game, it was very difficult for him to actually get the ball rolling. And I think I'd prefer Karmine Corp going back and going, hey, look, we're going to go for these more roam-oriented mid laners. So we're not coming into a mid game, which honestly, like, we kind of say, hey, it did well for Karmine Corp in the early game. This was a mid game that could have been won by Unicorns of Love, and by all rights, honestly, at least in my opinion, should have been won apart from a few mishaps.
I mean, but then again, there are a lot of KC fans right now, SAKEN has won 2 titles back-to-back. I don't know what you're going on. Yeah. I mean, this guy could look at a potential 3rd time in a row.
Yeah, and he's willing to do it. I mean, you can feel it in the gameplay, how aggressive is SAKEN on this kind of Azir. You were wondering if Azir is going to be once again, or if it's going to be back to the Corp's new identity with the roaming champs. But I'm wondering what Unicorns of Love is going to bring for the next game, because you tried the Wombo combo and it didn't work. What do you want to do for the next game? That's my question for Unicorns of Love.
I mean, yeah, especially after Game 1, we saw some awesome fights. Now coming into Game 2, the fights were less awesome, I would say. And I think it mainly had to do with the fact that Ibo is getting bullied a lot.
Well, look, I genuinely think that these mid-game fights could have easily swung in favor of Unicorns of Love, right? Like, we look at that dragon fight where you end up getting the ultimate cancelled by Reptile, and suddenly Karmine Corp are like, oh, we actually have a health bar because everything has been used already by Unicorns of Love to try and turn this play around, and this is the fight that I'm talking about here, right? Watch Reptile in this. If his damage had actually continued to go through in this fight, you win this fight as Unicorns of Love, and then you're able to get the dragon. Suddenly you're on 3 dragons so soon, and it's going so much better. But because of the knockback, 113 actually has the health bar to come in. He starts to corral them. You know as Karmine Corp that you don't actually have a huge amount of the ultimates available, which is what this composition from Unicorns of Love is built on, and it all starts to fall apart. And then we start to see them come back again, right? Unicorns of Love, we're looking at the Baron fight. They get this wonderful combo off where we actually get to see once more that it all comes true. And I'm like, fantastic. Let's get towers. Let's get objectives. Let's get some control of this map. Instead, they try to overforce a Baron, and that's what actually ends up costing them in this situation. It's these mishaps or misplays in the mid game that actually set them back.
I'm kind of paying the sense here, and don't know if I'm getting this correctly, but they were a bit unlucky, maybe.
Yeah, I think the Baron call was just a bad call. I think they just tried to overforce their hand, kind of knowing, hey, look, we're about to hit get into the late game point where our composition doesn't have that same strength, so they're trying to force as much as possible and came back to bite them. But I do think it was just unfortunate for Reptile not copying that the dragon was spawning. If he'd even taken, a couple more clicks in front of the dragon, suddenly that team fight's won, right?
Also, if you even look at this post-game breakdown, it's been very close throughout the entire game, Noah.
Yeah, wow. I'm watching at the 0 damage once again. It's like, yes, we know you want to win, definitely. You can feel it in the goal graph. It's absolutely an absolute, not a roller coaster, but a climbing for K-Corp. It's been a very, very beautiful game from the side of K-Corp. They took advantage when they can. And we have a saying in Spain, and that is Baron Nashor loses you more games.
No, but you have to do it in Spanish first. You have to do it in Spanish first.
El Baron te pierde más partidas de las que te gana. It's been a fact.
A C.
So far in this series.
Now, I do want to look at Cabochard, because Cabochard feels to me like he's a player that, K-Corp falls and rise among this player. Like, how he performs is kind of dictating on how the game will end. And now looking at how they performed this time around, his Snar, I think, he was very good at, making Aibo's life pretty hard.
Yeah, and especially even in the counter matchup, right? Like, you actually have a good time as the Rumble into this matchup generally, but you could see again, and this is why I'm not a big fan of the Azir pick, is when Cabochard gets resources, Cabochard takes over a game. And this time is a little bit more difficult for SAKEN to try and help out, but he still got a ton of attention from his jungler with 113 playing up towards Cabochard like 3 times we saw these ganks happening, then SAKEN got involved, and that's where this game really exploded. And it felt like you kind of got to look and go, right, well, if you can try and just facilitate that at an earlier point on a champion that's better suited for taking over the game, well then why isn't Karmine Corp just going for that?
Is it time for Unicorns of Love to attack that top lane again? Because it feels like what they did in game 1, shutting down Cabochard in that early game, worked well for them. Do you want to see them do that again?
Well, you can say that this game, they attacked again the top lane, but it wasn't enough because Cabochard was ready, and you saw 113, as Zagda was saying, attacking the top side as well. Not only attacking, but defending Cabochard. So Unicorns of Love need a new plan. It's not about attacking the top lane; it's attacking the win condition of the enemy team. We need that back from the side of Unicorns of Love if we won 5 games.
Yeah, Unicorns picked red side for game 3. Did you expect that?
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, again, kind of giving that counter pick for Aibo is really good. But I think I kind of agree with Noah here. I want to see them attack top, and I want to see Ruby doing that. Because, we called out Lurox in this game. He never really worked with Ruby to roam top or make these plays happen. That's the big change I want to see.
Can K-Corp keep the win going? I mean, they have one for themselves right now. They can't even it up. And the momentum is what got them going right now. They have to move on to match point in game 3, or will the Unicorns strike back? Let's send it over back to our casters.
Thank you so much. To our analyst desk, they broke it down. They told us what they expected. And again, like you said, or what they said, I should say, we saw Unicorns of Love try to attack that top lane twice now. One game was okay. Second game, not so okay. So where do we want to see maybe difference in the draft? Because don't forget, they got the counter pick of the Rumble into the Gnar in game 2.
It kind of feels like they have this mentality that if we don't do something about top lane, Cabochard is just going to take over the game and K-Corp will force through there. But I feel like although Cabochard's been relevant despite the fact that they've tried to interrupt that, and I feel like, instead of just saying, oh no, we have to stop top, commit towards the bot side. We've seen Reptile and DreamWorks actually have a strong 2v2 in the last game and force some, so
comparative to especially what we expected, right? You know, we thought the 2v2 was going to be a huge sticking point for the Unicorns. Hasn't actually been that. I don't really want to see that much change in the draft from the Unicorns' perspective. So obviously they lost that last game. I think it was an execution rather than draft, and I think that's the important thing to say about both the games. They're both playable drafts. Sometimes there are games where, like Game 3 LDLC X7, you sat there thinking, yeah, bit dunzo.
Why are you
bit
rehashing your own pain? Like
it's the way I process it. You know, I'm saying like, well, at least we can't go 0-9 today, huh?
You don't have enough seeds. Sorry, I feel like I'm really going in on you right now. I have no allegiance to any team. But we are coming in, obviously, into it as Unicorns of Love, where the side selectors, they opted to go into red side again. They feel like they have something available to them, Ox.
Yeah, and we see some of the set of bans coming out as well. Ari from Corp and
Sag.
Yeah, it just feels like we've been going for the exact same ones. It was Zaya here from Unicorns, they're going to go for that again. So Corp now can lean on that first pick. They went for Volley before, and it looks like it's getting a bit of a repeat.
And Volibear is such a powerful champion right now. It gives you the early game ability to fight around pretty much wherever you want to. Volibear is kind of the early game king. We saw Jinx outbeat that earlier in the split, but Volibear has really taken over that mantle.
And not only that, in the last game, we saw 113. It was like, we're going for a dive. So, oh, there's no minion waves. Doesn't matter. I can turn off the tower and we can still go for those dives.
Big difference here now, though, because you know that the Volibear is going to be coming into you. One of the answers to that is something like a Viego, because if Volibear is going for a play, Viego is also one of the prime counter gankers in the game. You go into that, Viego starts really punishing you if you don't choose your plays correctly. And honestly, I think I'd criticize both of these teams for not necessarily picking the best of fights and just hoping it works out for them. Viego works in that style.
But now we have the Ryze for SAKEN, and it's Volibear Ryze. Stu is so, like, it is the best two champions to go to the side lane and dive, right? The Realm Orb to get you there, and then you can turn off the turret, and it's such easy execution, especially when you have a misfortune for Rekkles as well. I expect to see them slamming the side lanes all game.
And it's exactly what Dag just said on the desk as well. He wants to see SAKEN on a roamer, on something that can have effects in those side lanes. Get Cabochard some more of those resources that they also love. We are going to see the Syndra answered into it. So good kill pressure here from Unicorns of Love, and they've got a decent 2v2 as well.
And also Syndra has the ability to actually contest Ryze in the early game, as opposed to some other quote-unquote, you know, answers or counters into the Ryze. Syndra can hit a lot of things early. If you get enough of your Qs on target, Ryze doesn't get to run, doesn't get to push that wave, and this becomes a very important skill matchup for this game now. Watch that mid lane. It will have impacts on how the rest of the map evolves.
I think critically when it comes to teamfights as well, she has that single target execution. You have two reset-based champions on your side. If someone from Corp overextends, someone gets caught out, it allows them just to find that momentum. Do you see some more bans coming through in Corp? It very much feels like they want to trim these strong, sort of bulky, weak side engages that we've seen teams lean on against them.
Because your Syndra is not getting to that misfortune. Your Jinx is largely not going to get to that misfortune. Something like a Malphite would have solved that issue. Unicorns, how much left have you got to actually get on top of that AD carry?
See what they want to go for. There's a lot of top lane pressure being put into here. Will be Unicorns of Love, we imagine, with that top lane counter, so they could either pick to the lane or they can pick for the fight, depending on how the compositions end up folding out. But I like how you brought up the resets as well for Unicorns of Love Sexy Edition, because this has been a series of very scrappy games, very scrappy fights, where one thing goes and you can see how low the health bar goes. It can change everything. So having that Jinx and Viego going that momentum, that could be the key.
I feel like Unicorns, I would like the Leona here. I feel like in terms of, you know, the Leona and Nautilus, we've seen traded off so much in this tournament, in League at the moment, particularly these two supports, but the ult can just stop the MF ultimate from a distance. If you're playing the Nautilus, you have to close the gap, which is a lot more difficult, and then leaves you Ibo for counter pick, just to make sure that Cabochard has to be the one blinding.
So I agree with that in a lot of ways. I think, again, you need something to shut down the misfortune. I think the unfortunate thing is, though, you look into like a Nautilus or the Leona, which can very much help. I mean, surely something like a Tom Kench would go pretty well here, actually. You have your ways to go forward, something like the Volibear. You can start trying to add in some extra plays around that top side. But I feel like there's a lot of disengage options which Karmine could lock in, which make Unicorn's job even harder to pull off that initial pick.
See what they want to go for. Leona's going to be answered in. Nautilus versus Leona has been the flavor of many a league, so we know that matchup very, very well. Both expecting them to go for that.
Tastes like hot CC.
Jayce here, maybe.
I was going to say maybe the Jayce to come in here. Could go Graves as well if you really wanted to.
Yeah, I think you would be comfortable if the Graves is answered by Ibo, but typically we see the Jayce picked up as one of those blindable tops. And especially you have Volibear Ryze, who can play the side. You have the Eclipse, Manamune, top laner, and AD carry, who just spikes so hard in the mid game. This comment from Corp is really synergistic, and I love it. Now Unicorns have to pick something to kind of neutralize the Gragas. Is something we've seen often. something can have a stable top lane. You can build yourself up to quite bulky. And critically, you talked about the MF needing to interrupt that. The cask makes it almost impossible to channel your ult.
Or you can, well, it has multiple modes of play, because that's one very important thing as well. But you can also, you know, maybe the Scatter of the Week does that for you. Maybe the Nautilus can separate things out. You've got multiple options to catch the first target and just punt away everyone else. That means that the strong single target damage into those resets becomes quite an easy thing to play around for
the funny thing is as well, with the Gragas into the Jayce matchup, we have seen it, and many times the Jayce just get obliterated. It can go both sides of it. The Gragas, fantastic with that passive and of course with the W to just mitigate a lot of that burst damage, and honestly still has a huge amount of burst himself.
Yeah, I mean, especially we see, you know, often the Everfrost first and then into like bulky items like we saw Fimbulwinter, yeah, but you still have the 100-0 damage if you land, you know, the Everfrost into the cask into a stun. You can just completely delete the Jayce if he's disrespectful.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. If you overstep, and Cabochard throughout the entire tournament, throughout the entire split, to be perfectly honest, LFL included, has been a fantastic rock, a foundation for the side of Karmine Corp, and it's about him. It's about the top lane. It's kind of what we expected to see coming into day one, you know, the game one. We're going to see it a lot more kind of fleshed out, considering now that the picks and comps have been set up.
And kind of following on from that as well, you track back to the last tournament as well of last summer, and Cabochard was my player of the tournament. He was so insanely strong there. He was playing his Lee Sin tops, he was playing a whole lot of stuff, but he hasn't really broken his stride. Now, the team, Karmine Corp, did, of course, take a bit of a stumble. They didn't have the level of dominance in this LFL split. And as they have done in all of the other splits, they have competed in the top level of that division. But Cabochard has, for me, still been top of his game.
Top of his games, and this is going to be a very key matchup again. 1-1 in the series. You're going to set yourself up into a 2-1, putting yourself one step away from getting yourself into that semifinals. It's a big game.
I think for me, it's all about the mid jungle. If the Ryze Volibear can do what they want to do, they will just take over the map. The side lanes will be snowballed so incredibly easily. But I do think, as we said earlier, right, the Syndra Viego isn't necessarily a bad matchup for it, but Lurox and Ruby need to step up and be able to, you know, Ruby needs to be contesting lane, contesting prio, Lurox needs to be matching 1-1-3, potentially looking for counters.
And what we saw in game one, I think that's very relevant here again, is these early wards being really important, right? You get that information, you get to get a bit of an advanced warning, because again, I think that what Unicorns have in their mid jungle is very good reaction to the play. I don't necessarily think they're the most good on the front foot when they're actually starting off that gank, but if 1-1-3 goes into lane, eats a stun, into another stun, and dies for it, actually that's something which Unicorns can very much play around.
Lots to play around, lots to see. Again, the junglers in the early game have been pivotal to both these sides. We saw 2 early game ganks going to the top side. One was successful in game 1 to Unicorns of Love. The second one was Karmine Corp. We are going to see the same path from Lurox going up towards that top side, but it is going to be the Volibear from 1-1-3 going from top down into the bot lane.
So we haven't seen a lot of early bot prio this series at all. In fact, the couple of times where we have seen that junglers path towards bot side, they've had to very quickly peel off and try and deal with something happening on the top side of the map. Actually, the ones that we saw actual bot lane stuff was when there was that ill-fated dive from Karmine Corp in game 1, and maybe they're trying to flip the script once more in this game 3.
I will say one thing, though, is that both Jayce in the top lane and this MF in the bot lane will be looking to find prio. 1-1-3 can only really lead to one, but he is looking
Level
for that
3
early gank.
Level 3, you talked about it. He is the Exodia of this particular setup. We'll get the flash out of Ruby, but I think it's all in vain. First blood goes over to SAKEN. It's the same play, just at a different venue.
And such a good start, right? You burn the flash from Ruby, which means his laning is going to have to be a lot more defensive, have to play further back. You get that extra injection of gold, and as I said, if you get ahead in this mid-jungle, it makes all the difference.
And this is Volibear's strongest part of his game, and he went that untracked. Unicorns were not ready for that aggression, even though it is kind of what you expect out of this champion. 1-1-3 finds the angle. You can't cover every lane in existence, but Unicorns didn't really do their due diligence, and Ruby now has to play from behind. And Syndra always wants to be ahead of the curve. Very snowball champion. If they get to put them down with a second kill, no flash, this will be horrible for the Prime League squad.
Lurox is here, so he is covering because they want to try and push this up as quickly as they possibly can. Make sure Ruby doesn't have a horrible lane state. But SAKEN saying, no, I don't care. You have to try and deal with this because I have the priority. I know where my players are. And now Lurox has to kind of show himself and say, okay, I'm now here to sort this out.
This is really important. I feel like if they didn't get this crash in, Ruby would be, again, overexposed. You could set up a situation where they would be able to pick him off, but Lurox doing a good job to make sure his mid lane can play safely. They'll be able to secure that topside scuttle.
This is now the third game in a row as well, where it feels like the team with the Ryze has managed to get a leg up through that mid jungle. You know, it feels like the Ryze has been a very important pick so far, even though what is 1-1. Because of course, Ruby did play it in both of the games so far, but just being able to have that such solid consistency C in that mid lane has been the big point of these drafts so far.
I think critically, he still has his flash, so we can easily see until Ruby's flash comes up, you always have to be concerned about a flash route coming out, and then there's limited counterplay on that one. So I would like to see Hantera potentially look for another roam up towards the mid lane when there's an opportunity.
And we can kind of talk about these two teams as a holistic setup, is a good word here from the side of Unicorns. Does
I like
spot
that
out
word.
as a, you know, it's a whole kind of setup about this tournament, because this has been. This does feel like it is a little bit more lean towards how we would normally see these two teams play. You know, the top side focus from Karmine Corp, and Unicorns are very much waiting on that late game damage.
And you can see where these teams really find their advantages. Karmine Corp are so good in lane. Now, sometimes that's some help from their junglers, and actually you can see currently that Ibo making Cabochard fight hard for his lane advantage. Last game, though, wasn't he 32 CS up from that last game? Absolutely absurd leads from there, as it does feel like Unicorns were playing more towards that scaling up towards multiple dragon advantages.
So 1-3 does get spot out there, but is trying to establish a bit more control on this top side. You know, Ibo's low with no mana. They probably could dive this. They managed to stop his reset. He'll be in an uncomfortable spot.
Not a huge amount of mana, and they still get it though, and that's going to be the long range kind of poke coming out from 1-1-3. You do not have a teleport here, and it looks like Unicorns are loving saying, look, Ibo, it's up to you. You got to figure out a way of 1v2ing this, because we're going to take the dragon, so they at least get themselves an objective. The W passive should fall off in a second, as SAKEN's now being pushed back by Ruby. This is going to be a bit of a 3v1 for a moment, but I don't know if they're going to be able to make it work just yet. There's the belly bop coming out, the flash away. And everyone just kind of backs themselves off. SAKEN just going to trade back with Ruby. And that's going to be the Ryze coming back. So a good bit of pressure here from Karmine Corp, but they don't gain what they came for.
Yeah, and so much time is bought, which allows the wave to get played out, which is why they couldn't go for the full dive. They do bring the flash, they get something from the reference, but they lose out on the dragon on the bot side. So I think Unicorns managing that one pretty effectively.
Also, one topic of a little, I'm not going to say controversy, but it's been a discussed topic in the recent couple of days. It's the biscuits. If you're low on mana, you're low on HP, he actually gets a fair amount of value. And in that specific case, Biscuit actually does help.
Oh, Lurox.
Yeah, it got him the mana pool to survive that.
Ooh, okay, the flash over the wall was good. There was a lot of Karmine Corp people coming in to converge on that Viego. So now Lurox won't have his flash available for next bit, but again, he took the dragon. He does not really care.
And it is still continuing to be Karmine Corp playing around a wrecking ball Volibear early game, and Unicorns having to play so much respect to that. Currently, a little over 1,000 gold down. That's obviously a lot of that out of the hands of the Syndra. Syndra is behind the Ryze, and as we keep saying, Syndra is a snowbally champion. If you don't have that 100-0 threat, you don't have that huge amount of burst damage, then you are still immobile. You're still not providing as much as a lot of other champions in your role.
But what I will say is that level 6, which you've just seen Lurox hit there, and Ruby as well, you get so much combat power between the Syndra and the Viego. So if we do see a contention on the mid 2v2, they gain a lot from that, especially if you can now reset as Lurox, get another ult charge, and get out of whatever champion you've inhabited when they have no more cooldowns. But on K-Corp, it's not so much about the combat power, it's about the utility. The Realm Warp is available, the ult for the Volibear are going to be there soon, and I want to see them making those proactive plays to get their side lanes ahead.
We don't really get to talk about this because the games tend to go at such a pace that we never really get to see it as much, but we got to talk about some of the tools available to this Viego should he get those resets. Single target CC on the Volibear, the Ryze, the Leona, things that he's going to be able to pick up constantly. Even the Jayce has a little bit of mobility and CC as well, so depending on which form he's in, but this could be a big movement here if they can get those resets off.
It's the Sylas philosophy. Do you have good ultimates to steal on Sylas? Yes, that's a very strong part of his kit. Viego does the opposite. Do you have good basic abilities to steal? Leona, Nautilus have been meta for so long. We've seen Viego use that so well. And in this game, you're absolutely right. Single reset can mean so much because the abilities they have.
They're going to be able to catch him out. There's still no level 6 here for 1-1-3. He gets a little bit of a shield and keeps himself alive just by the skin of his teeth. But he's falling significantly behind now in this jungle matchup.
Okay, that emote counts. That was a good emote.
Oh, no.
But it was a good move, right? We saw Dream Race actually loop through the top lane. Normally we see supports come through mid to group up a Herald. We even see Hantera is hovering around the mid lane, but Dream Race takes a pretty creative path up there, and as a result, they get the advantage. Even though they don't kill 1-1-3, it's enough to secure them the Herald, and I feel like for a team with this composition that K-Corp have, you want to be getting those early Heralds, you want to be snowballing, and now Unicorns will secure the second objective of the game, 100-0.
Okay, so that is now a power play in the hands of Unicorns if they find an actual appropriate way to use it. I mean, This is obviously the first Herald, still loads of time to go, wait for an opportune moment to get some plates. A lot of action. Okay, Realm Warp coming up to help rotations around, using that as a
rotations.
No Hex Gates, no
what I'll
problems.
say is, that's a long cooldown.
Yeah.
Right, Realm Warp is a really long cooldown. You've used that. You've only just hit level 6 now for the Volibear.
Okay,
those moments we're looking for from K-Corp haven't really come alive. And now you're at a point where if you show on the map, Lurox has a free pass to Herald wherever he wants.
But consider this. Cooldowns are temporary. Minions are forever, Orcs. I appreciate that. It's
Line
using
your
more...
pockets, get that bag. That's all I got. But it kind of...
Rekkles asked for a Realm Warp to away.
You do not say no. That
you
is
say
just
no to
not
him?
how that works. But it kind of speaks true to what Dagda was mentioning about. We said that, yes, great, you have the Ryze Forsaken, he can move around. Using your Realm Warp to get your Misfortune to away, that's not really what we were talking about. But we have got pushed down this top side. They will have the Gragas here. Flashes up in about 3 or 4 seconds. I think Ibo is going to be in a little bit of trouble. As I say that, there's the explosive cast to clear the minions away. They haven't really committed to this one just yet, but they're going to try and get the bullet time down. It's onto a Gragas. They're tanking up the turret now. That's going to be 2 kills going over. You say that, Rekkles. He tanked it just a little bit too early. The Mega Death Rocket on the screen, and screen cannot do any real damage here. The answer is going to be no, as it goes right between the sticks, and that's going to be 2 kills over to Karmine Corp. They will end up trading top tower, though, in terms of bot.
And I mean, I feel like Ruby just added to the reward for K-Corp by showing up. Yes, Unicorns do answer on the bot side, but yeah, literally just more gold in pocket. And I think K-Corp, considering Unicorns had the Herald, they were always going to win the tower race, but they got a lot of extra rewards out of that one.
And doubling down on Ruby there. Every death on this Syndra means double. It means so much more. You're not ahead. You're 0-2. The Karmine Corp, though they are losing something in the cross map, it's still gold from those bot lane turret. And the chunk of the next one going to the favor of the Unicorns. It's still really bad for the nameplates and the champions that you have online. Ruby is behind. He's an important player to the team, and he's on a champion that does not thrive from behind as well.
And look at the top difference as well. Cabochard able to pick up so much of a lane advantage thanks to the play coming from the rest of the team. Significant CS lead, and we've seen the double eclipse come through from the Jayce and the Misfortune. The tiers are stacking. That 2-item spike, I feel like that's critical mass for K-Corp. One thing to be said is that because Unicorns are secured to Dragons, Soul is a long, long away for K-Corp. But I feel like their composition should be able to spike hard and look to progress the game regardless.
That's the big thing. Now it's kind of onto K-Corp. It's like, yes, you sacked the 2 dragons, but you got a significant amount of gold. You're now up about 1,000, maybe a little bit less, but it is on significant carries. The Misfortune and, of course, onto the Jayce. So it's about how you're able to utilize this advantage. We might see 113 Gonna dodge out and keep himself alive. Has got the blast gun to keep himself safe. But it is starting to get to a point now where you're kind of saying, K-Corp, you need to be the ones being proactive. You need to find the fights and make it work for you. Ooh, that Scatter of the Week was good, but the Solar Flare was better as they're able to catch him off. They're going to try and maybe go for the kill. Dreamer Ace and Lurox just trying to see if they can make something work. They might go for it, but SAKEN with the perfectly timed stopwatch stops any kind of damage. That was beautiful.
And it's another fight where Reptile's entire participation is an ultimate. It's not like you're there at the fight, you're not doing significant damage, and Ruby's the next on the menu.
Ruby's got to be careful, and he's not going to be safe. That's going to be the Rekkles ultimate, just putting down the damage, and this feels like Unicorns are just losing it.
Karmine Corp, they always prefer Kyogre over Groudon, don't want any of that Ruby business, goes down for the 3rd time. That Syndra is just not getting any value.
And they're just getting so much more momentum. I don't know why, because it felt like Unicorns were hanging around, waiting for the fight, waiting for the opportunity, and look for the re-engage. And it's like, you're remembered down. You're not going to find a favorable fight. And you need the extra damage there, because if you don't have it, you're not going to get that reset.
You get sick. Like, the thing is,
this is about as good as it goes. This is about as good as it goes. You actually have decent disengage, and it's just still way out of whack.
I mean, Dreamer Ace could have dredge-lined the wall to try and get away, and you could have just attempted to disengage. Worst case scenario, you lose your support. But instead, they try and commit to the extended play despite being membered down. And then Ruby again, playing quite aggressively here.
Actually missed his Scatter of the Week on the second one, but then, you know, there's so many tools which Karmine Corp can use as cleanup after that point. It looks like they're going to clean up some more tails in top lane.
They're going to try. Dreamer Ace is there, has got the Glacial Augment to keep himself and his AD carry safe. But Reptile's not got a lot of mana right now, so it's going to be very hard. And this is what we're talking about. You can dive a tower. It doesn't mean if you have a wave or not. Reptile will fall, and that's going to be easy. Now Lurox being kept away by Hantera. Dreamer Ace is still going strong underneath the tower, but there's so many members here on the side of K-Corp. It's a 8 kills to none. Let's make it a nice clean round 9. And this is just decimation.
They're getting crushed, and K-Corp, oh, more action.
More action, and he can't get the damage down.
No, it's a disaster for Unicorns. 10 for 0 so far in this game. Ultimate's going to come down.
Oh, hey.
And I mean, I look at this game and I look at the mid jungle 113 and SAKEN 406, 404. This is a prime example of why these two picks are so hotly contested in this game. But the fight, it started off again with Unicorns trying to get aggressive.
But I mean, it just feels like when you do take Ruby and you take Lurox off of the table from Karmine and they're not able to pin down 113. He is so at his leisure to take these kinds of plays. Gets to hold his ultimate for so long. There's just no kill threat onto him. Gets to dive these throws so much impunity. And Ruby, you know, if you weren't 0-3, you had a couple of kills under your belt, suddenly that stun on SAKEN is actually him chunked out of the fight. Suddenly that's him not able to go towards it. But because he's so far behind, the Syndra is just there as, I don't know, fireworks.
And that's the thing, right? You have 2 dragons. You have time, but you're still opting in. You're agreeing to handshake and take these fights, despite the fact you're already behind, despite the fact that you have things like the Jinx and the Viego, which you can lead on late.
I didn't even know that was there.
What?
That's amazing.
Are you kidding me?
That's so cute. I never knew that.
Something new every day.
You do.
Why
There's
is
always
it? Hang on, no, that raises a question. Why was it hiding there? What is it hiding from?
the guardian of the
What
rift.
what could make you hide like that? That is,
He's on top of a waterfall.
It's
He's
a Ryze.
yeah. He's just actually balling right
I
now.
don't know, something strange is going on, and it is a bot lane.
Well, it is in bot lane. They're going to get himself in the bounce house. They get him knocked up, knocked down, and finally, oh no, you have to kill him. You have to kill him. Finally, they get the kill off, and the Genie Mac, that was very, very close.
They get the kill, but it's kind of worrying how long it took. I think it shows how far behind they are, and this is a cost in return. A free Herald comes out for K-Corp, and they'll take 2 towers of the back in the mid lane.
They could even get a charge off the Rift Herald again if they really wanted to, and Dragon's up, so they can just turn for that. They're getting everything.
And they still have the Volibear.
Oh!
They have so many ways.
Hello,
What's
Shelly.
it doing?
Hello, Shelly.
Rift Herald wanted to see the wild.
I love the theory. I love the thought process, but I don't think
So-
the Herald understood what was going on.
So, fun fact, when a Herald is on a specific path,
It goes
and it's
straight
within a
back
lane, it will go
Yeah,
to
yeah.
that lane regardless. So, sadly, SAKEN well aware of that. And
Hey.
Dreamer Ace is probably in a little bit of trouble here himself. And oh,
Oh
my
my
god.
Lord.
This is unfair. This is unfathomed. As we can see now, SAKEN, he actually just walks away. I like that, but they might even try and push him down. Ruby thought about going for something with the Hex Gates, but yeah, this is getting rough.
But this is getting to the point where it's just kind of unceremonious. I mean, we saw in the first 2 games, it was blow for blow, but every time Unicorns have tried to make something land in this game, it's just not worked. They're caught out,
no.
they're overextended, they're losing another fight.
Yeah, they are. You're unstoppable when you go into the Volibear ultimate. Ruby will flash away, but I don't think it's going to be any good to you, my dude. He's going to be chased down. He is getting some decent distance between himself and the giant bear, so contrary to my own prediction, he does keep himself alive, but it's just so difficult right now, and Karmine Corp, they're just playing with their food.
Yeah, and I will say the bright side to this is that it is a best of 5, so Unicorns will get another chance, but things are looking rough for now. The positive
My God.
is those dragons they have earlier, things like the Jinx, and I think if this is a big if K-Corp overstep, you have the
Okay.
resets.
I mean, they're going to go for this. They know they need to go for something and try and make it work, but a double TP into the Misfortune ultimate. Dreamer Ace has nothing to do. They do get a good explosive cap. They're trying to get resets down, but the Syndra is dead.
close.
The Viego dies as well. Reptile being chased away from everything. They went for the Hail Mary, but nobody was downfield.
And the resets just can't come through. Maybe 1/2 a second earlier on that kill, and you get something back, but it's such a far off dream. And you are driven to the point of desperation now, because there's no traditional play, conventional one that's going to work out for Unicorns Alone, Sexy Edition, and they come in here, they find a way to get Rekkles from the backline into the front line, but you're just too far behind.
Just don't have the gold, right? This is really just K-Corp responding quickly with the TPs, but also the difference they have already in terms of power is just astronomical at this point.
But kind of returning back to what we were saying just before that, I mean, it is still a best of 5, and it's a best of 5 between experienced players who have been in this situation before. Hell, Karmine Corp have, Force as an org, won this tournament 2 times back-to-back. Need we remind you anymore, but Unicorns, they're going to have to dig deep after this. We've seen grit out of Karmine Corp. We've seen grit out of Unicorns in the game that they won as well. They're going to have to show it again. Maybe not in this game. Might be too far gone. It's going to have to come out at some point if they want to go the distance.
And you know what? I'm going to say that play they had before, I respect it. I feel like you have to go for the miracle plays like that. And I think they shouldn't just slowly bleed out because they need to try and just hard force and catch someone who's left isolated. Like right now, Rekkles doesn't have his flash available. Neither does Cabochard. Those are your windows.
What they can do, there's explosive cast to clear the way. Does get a little bit of disengage. They're just putting that. That's your tank. That is your tankiest member just being mowed down by the Ryze underneath tower.
Yeah, you might have windows. Karmine Corp decided to smash them in. No glass allowed in this house. And Karmine Corp, they don't have a Baron. They can't have a Baron. It's 19 minutes in, but they're crushing through any area of the map they choose to stay in. And 1-1-3 is absolutely massive on this Volibear. 4-0 and A. Even sat here wave clearing, you can see the degree of respect they need to give to this LFL team.
And the thing is, it doesn't even really get better anytime soon because the mana immunes are stacking, right? We have both of them closing up on 360 so they can, you know, turn into the upgraded version. We have 3 items on SAKEN on this Ryze. It's just... it's rough.
You're gonna, like, we've played nearly 20 minutes, just coming up to 20 minutes of the game. You're gonna need another 20 minutes to get up to a point of which you're actually relevant against some of these super tanks, the damage dealing coming out from the Jayce and the Misfortune, because we're getting to a point where the Make It Rain and the Accelerated Shock Blast will be enough just to get you off of any objective. It doesn't matter how much you have and what you're trying to do.
Particularly when you've got the Jinx and the Syndra. This is what happens when they fall behind. You are so vulnerable.
You can't even go with the buddy system. I'm a big advocate of the buddy system when warding, but right now you are so far behind.
Yeah, you're just dragging them down with you.
Yep, you're just dragging your buddies down. We are going to see the Solar Flare just clip Ruby, and he is dead to rights. This is just kind of hard to watch.
It's brutal.
Yeah, it's just time's up. Unspeakable violence. Unicorns, they have really given us a good couple of games so far, but this one has not even been close. And we worried about that Ryze going over to SAKEN. It is one of his real iconic picks, and he has led from the front with this through that mid jungle. And Unicorns looking for something, looking for anything.
They have
Maybe
to go for
SAKEN's
it.
the pick.
That's a good explosive cast. They got to try and burn him down as quick as they possibly can. He flashes over the wall. He will not be able to get away, though. That's a big shutdown. Hantera is next on the menu. They will have themselves a ruined prison to try and keep him locked up and taken out. 2 big shutdowns. It's not a lot, Nightmare, but it's something.
Rekkles is actually on his own towards that top side. You can see they're trying to use this momentary window of power yet again, but okay, they get 1 shutdown, but they can't continue into anything particularly large after this point. I still think that Karmine Corp have presence, but 1-1-3 is still so large. Cabochard is still so large. I don't think they get this without a fight.
I think you got to go
God,
for it.
Oh,
You got to poke. You got to go for it. You have
well
to.
with Hexgate. She's going to be here in no time.
They're going to try and look for something here, try and burn this one down before 1-1-3 can get in. Here we go. The Dragon's going to be coming down. This will put you onto Soul Point. Here we go. Over the top side. It's a smite fight. And it is won by 1-1-3 as the bullets rain down. Dreamer Ace sacrificed himself for the benefit of his team. You have to run, but SAKEN's already cut off your exit. He knows you're trying to get away, and there's just no reprieve. You had to go for something. You had to try and make something stick, but sadly, it all falls apart.
They got just absolutely decimated on the back of that, and you just see, even with 2 members down, K-Corp are more than strong enough to take them out. Lurox has actually managed to escape and survive. If he steals it...
They know he's there. If he steals it, it would be huge. We're going to see Hantera. They're going to not let him, and there's an accelerated shock blast to try and pepper him down. Hantera can just hold the Q, hold the Shield of Daybreak. He probably will just end up killing himself off the top of this. The Baron does go over. Rekkles is here. Hantera will die to the hand of the red buff. Now Rekkles is a little bit caught out. He's a little bit in the wrong place at the wrong time. They're going to try and stun him up, but Dreamer Ace and Lurox kind of have 2 ideas. They're going to try and take him out. They finally do. It's a very scrappy fight. It's so all over the place right now. They can't get anything else. It will just be a couple of kills. But again, Karmine Corp, they're not worried.
I mean, it's gold a little bit. There's a drip in the bucket. It's not nearly enough, and it's not like Karmine Corp are out of tools to fight with as well. Haven't even needed to reset. Still so far ahead.
Oh, Ibo. He's getting taken so low. They try to go in. They're trying to take him down. They're trying to do something. Cabochard finally gets in, but he gets taken out on the back side of this. This is incredibly scrappy. It's kind of getting to a bit of a weird point. The side of Karmine Corp have actually lost 3 of their 5 Baron buffs.
And I gotta say, when we're trading in situations like these, the shutdowns are gonna favor Unicorns. This is getting messy from K-Corp, and with the goal lead they had, it kind of felt like the game should have just been done, but they're opting into these unnecessary fights, and even look at the top of your screen, they're down gold on this Baron take.
And this is it's also just like basic kind of numbers as well. You think, look, if we're trading even in gold while there's a disparity, that favors the team that is further behind because the percentages start to go in their favor. And Unicorns, is it enough? No, it's not.
Maybe.
It really isn't. It always
If they continue to do this, maybe.
It always starts with a maybe. That's the thing. Now,
No, it starts with success.
No, you did the monologue earlier. Now that is completely on you. But although it can start with a maybe, it's just so unlikely. You can see how much space SAKEN just has around him as this just wall of absolute damage. I know it's still the Ryze. It's not the AP. It's still the tank. But just the amount of threat which SAKEN has on the Ryze alone, and every single member of Karmine Corp is becoming so hard to navigate as Unicorns.
24.5 minutes, 10,000 gold, or just shy of it, about 9,000 and a half.
No biggie.
No biggie. You can do it.
It's less than 10.
You need a miracle. You need to catch multiple members with a scatter of the week, isolate. Oh, Jesus. Isolate someone like Rekkles with an explosive cast, and then maybe you have an opportunity to fight this. I will say you are slowly getting up to 2 items onto Syndra, 3 items maybe onto the Jinx. Well, here we go. We're going to go for it. There's a good explosive cast. That's Rekkles out of the fight as he flashes away.
Oh, they're doing pretty deep.
Hantera goes a little bit too far forward, and we got ourselves a couple of resets. There's going to be the Realm Morph. Oh! He catches him! Rekkles just about gets himself out. SAKEN, he can't run away. Karmine Corp, what are you doing? Karmine Corp, this is where you're supposed to win. Karmine Corp, what are you doing?
Maybes are not meant to look like this. This is so far in Karmine Corp's favor, but things are starting to happen.
If you're ever gonna have a composition where you can throw with the 10,000 gold lead, it's against one with the Viego Jinx. They get 1 kill on the restarts coming in, and K-Corp try and run. But it's a lot more gold in favor. It was 10,000, it's now 6,000. We'll see the replay. The cask so good at splitting them. The Hantera gets knocked under the tower, and they just need that 1 kill.
It's absolutely huge. And you're right, it is actually a bit of a mind game coming in from Unicorns there. That cask was incredible, because if you let that go for even a second more, probably Jinx can't fight. Heck, Jinx might even be dead. The amount of damage that Misfortune has is incredible, but the timing works out, everything works out, but teleport back in.
They see him. They know he's there, so they're going to maybe try and keep Ibo alive. He will get stunned up here, and yeah, I don't think there's much else he can really do here. He's just going to have to accept his fate. The teleport is there. That was a nice little belly bop to get onto 3 people, but it doesn't really make a difference. Now, Karmine Corp, you need to try and reset. Baron is gone. 20 seconds till the dragon is there. They will get them ultimate there. I think that was trying to tin away the wave, but they're just trying to take away the mid lane, the bot lane inhibitor turret, and as he flash forward, Gale Force away. SAKEN! SAKEN! He goes gold, and that's a massive Misfortune ultimate. Now they're smacking him with their wallets. They take away the Nautilus and the Syndra. It's Reptile versus the world. He's got Lurox there, but finally K-Corp are picking up where they left off.
And it felt like Unicorns, they said the quiet bit out loud really loudly, the maybe, and then another fight happens, it gets quieter and quieter.
It does.
Someone on K-Corp said, guys, let's get serious, and they are getting serious and should be looking to close this one out.
This should be it. There is a Gragas and, of course, the Viego, but the Viego with a Heartbreaker is not exactly the most ideal of champions to defend your base. They are going to walk it down, and that's going to be Karmine Corp going up 2-1 in this series. In fairness, at all things said and done, it was very entertaining.
Unicorns kept trying. That's what I'll say. Despite the deficit,
I appreciate
they
that.
didn't press tab. They didn't look at the items. They were like, let's just give it a go. And, you know, they at least made K-Corp get a bit serious at the end, but ultimately there was too big of a deficit. And K-Corp, you know, they had such a strong early game on that one.
But very briefly, they made us believe. I know they're a fancy animal, and it's a bit hard to believe in it, but they still made us believe for a second.
Just a little bit, but yeah, Karmine Corp, they picked it up like you said. Someone said, "All right, guys, let's press the win button right now. Let's stop messing around. We got a little bit of an issue to come up on that one." But in a crushing victory, K-Corp move on to 2-1, are just 1 win away from their 3rd consecutive semifinals appearance. Can they close it out in Game 4, or will the Unicorns bounce back? We'll be back after this.